I don't know who the true great directors are. I just know, like, oh, that was a good movie. We went and saw it. Oh,
Yeah.
that's Spielberg or that's whoever. So, but what makes a great director great?
Another great question, and it's also kind of multifaceted. But going back to the example of Spielberg, I think he's the king, in my opinion, of Hollywood filmmaking. If you are like a student of film, you know that like world cinema is very wide. A lot of world cinemas have their specialties, but Hollywood's filmmaking has, and our specialty as an industry is just great storytelling. And I think Spielberg became king of that with Jaws. I still think Jaws is the ultimate Hollywood film.
And you're going to tell us why.
And I will, yeah, exactly. We show it every summer at the theater that the festival takes place because it still gets so much, feedback, reaction. It's because it tells a story so entertaining, and it's such an entertaining manner, but it also has such great characters that you can really grab onto. And it even has that one scene. Have you seen Jaws recently?
No, but I've seen it many times, but not recently.
Right.
It scared me as a kid, dude.
Yeah, well, exactly. That was another reason why.
I mean, you want to cause nightmares? I mean, is that a director's? That's a great director. They ruin people's day.
Hey, I mean, that's kind of a good point. I think that some of the great films, with a good director behind it, can be like, you
changed my day, asshole.
Exactly, because it's a form of manipulation, in a way. Like a director, and not in a bad way. I always say this when I teach like students or whatever. Your job is to manipulate, not in horrible sense of it, but you need to manipulate emotions.
In business, for the positive, we call it influence.
Right.
You guys manipulate, you're mean. We positively influence.
Exactly.
So you're manipulating us, but okay, let's go.
Right, exactly. And Spielberg manipulated, when you were maybe younger or maybe recently, for you to be terrified of sharks or even going into the water, because he made it a very real circumstance where that could possibly happen. But there's also that one really great scene I always think about where Quint, played by Robert Shaw, tells that whole monologue about him being on the USS Indianapolis and, seeing all his fellow, sailors getting eaten by sharks over the course of many days. And that scene to me is what made it like a film, because before that it kind of is in B-movie fare, but with a higher budget. But with that scene, you kind of understand him as a human being. And I think that's what the ultimate goal of cinema is to have empathy for people you may not have empathy for otherwise, because you understand them. And it goes from there to be just super exciting. And the shark, I don't want to give any spoilers for anybody.
I don't think you're giving spoilers at this moment, so go ahead.
Yeah, I already am. I think it's 50 years old this year. The shark blows up at the end, so everybody, walks away. Well, not everybody. Quint, not so much, but
did they eat the boat motor or something? That's what blew up. No, they threw a snorkeling or a scuba diving tank in their mouth.
Right, and then he goes, he shoots the tank and goes up and ball of. That's it.
But there may have been another one.
Well, that's why there's sequels.
Screw sequels. You guys ruin things.
They're not as good, the sequels.
Why is that?
They weren't directed by Spielberg, because that kind of answers your question of like, why is a director so important? What makes a good director?
Did we finish that yet? Like, what makes him the director of Jaws that made him great that others didn't? Because you're...
Yeah.
Like, how's he telling the story better? Does he see it better? Does he understand it better? What is it?
Well, I think he does, but I think most people can notice this, even if they're not filmmaking people. His camera style is very distinct. It's a Spielberg film, but just by the way it's shot, there's just this like kind of like fluid camera movement. Really great compositions that he lines up. But he just is so great at pacing. He's so great at making you invested in the characters, even with like, say, a film like E.T. Like at the end, if you're not like a little emotional when E.T. goes home, it's like, it's an alien, rubber alien.
Yeah,
at
you're
the end of the day.
not a good human if you don't feel something then, right?
Exactly, because like he makes you I think it just comes down to he really believes the material. He's not like he's not cynical, really. Like Spielberg isn't a cynical filmmaker. He never has been. I think he actually has a positive outlook on many things in life. But I think that's why he's America's Hollywood's greatest director, because he kind of almost makes very American films because of, our concept of, the American dream and things are always going to be better.
So
all
an
of his
optimistic,
films.
positive filmmaker.
Absolutely. And his films always leave you with that.
Is that what you consider American filmmaking?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, 100% Hollywood, traditional filmmaking usually leaves you with a nice aftertaste. Whereas like some
versus Kill Bill.
Well, Kill Bill is Tarantino, I think, is certainly more influenced by European and Asian cinema than he is.
He's wild, man.
Yeah.
He's wild.
Yes.
That's all I would say. I mean, you probably have dug into him in school and film
Yeah.
and stuff. I don't know the nuance of it, but I'm just like, man, that guy's wild. Not just his movies, but you listen to him and
he's nuts.
man, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, like, how did he make it through when so many other talented people don't as well? How's that happen? Is it just like music? You can go to Nashville.
Yeah.
And you just hear talented people at every bar.
Right.
And maybe even more talented than the ones that hit it big that we know their name.
Right.
Similar in filmmaking?
I think so. I mean, and I think when you're talking about music and like Nashville and stuff like that, same thing applies to film. A lot of it comes down to circumstance, luck, all that stuff comes into play. Money, of course. But there's no denying that, Tarantino, he's one of the interesting cases where, yeah, he's not like your traditional Hollywood filmmaker, but yet he's very popular still. Like people still are excited to see the next Tarantino movie because
there's going to be another one. There was going to be like one more, but now I don't.
Well, I think he's just like he's waiting, and I think he's just like waiting until the hype goes up to the absolute,
kind of like George Strait, the country music singer.
Right.
He's always retiring.
Yeah.
He's always going on. This is my retirement.
Right. They're always threatening retirement.
Always.
And
then you really talk to him. You're like, no. That was my tour for retiring of like this person in my band.
Right.
Like just that person's not with me
like
anymore.
they're done, but I still might do some stuff.
So you think he's building it up?
Yeah, I think so. Because he had like this one movie that he was preparing.
I heard about this.
And
why did they not release it?
Well, it just never went into production.
Why?
He's
didn't fit the times or something.
It could be the times, but I also think if you've heard him talk, he's a very precious filmmaker. Like he has this like one rule where he wants only 10 films. Like he wants to have only 10 films in his entire filmography, which if you count Kill Bill's 2 movies, I guess that doesn't even really make sense. But, he's very almost OCD about it. So if he thinks this isn't the perfect last film, he's just not going to do it.
He might ruin it that way.
I think so. I think that's too much pressure on yourself, in my opinion. I think you should just keep making films till you're just like, I might like. There's very few mic drops in the history of cinema for filmmakers. You know what I mean? Like most of the time, a lot of filmmakers, their last film might be like their worst film, which I get his concept of that. But I do think saying like this is my final film might be putting a little too much pressure on yourself to make it just like the greatest film of all time.
And it also might not be the truth, because what else is the guy going to do?
He says he's going to write. He says he's going to do plays. He says he's going to do all this stuff. But I think his language is cinema. He was born and bred cinema. I don't think I've ever heard him talk about really anything else besides cinema. So I don't know how he could step away, but he might. Who knows?
Was there anybody in his family that was in cinema and Hollywood beforehand?
No. His case is kind of interesting. He really did not have nepotism situation. He did grow. Maybe his one leg up is that he grew up in like Los Angeles area. But he worked at like the video store like all throughout his 20s. Like he just was almost preparing himself to become a director, and he somehow through circumstance and luck probably got one of his screenplays sold. I think it was True Romance or Natural Born Killers, and those kind of put him on the map. And he had this script, Reservoir Dogs, circulating, and somehow Harvey Keitel, the actor, great actor, got his hands on it, and it was like, hey, kid, like, I'll help you produce this. I like this. I want to star in it. That's kind of how that happened. And then the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yeah.